YouTube, what's going on? It's your boy Booda back in the building for another Last Cloudia information and more of a guide video. You guys knew it was coming with the upcoming update tomorrow, bringing us the Ark Selector ticket. I gotta put out my recommendations for which one you should select, similar to how we had the unit trade ticket 2 weeks ago. Pretty big deal that Adel is giving us these free unit and Ark tickets to select, right? Very generous of them. While we can't get URs and LRs and limited things with these tickets, being able to select something that's typically gated by RNG is a big boon to any account. There are definitely picks for Arks that you can assure the longevity of usefulness on your account. What I have done is I've sorted each one of the columns from top to bottom to see how Twanks has sponsored Booda incoming. Have I told you about HelloFresh yet? Well, in case I haven't, they have chosen to sponsor your boy Booda, and this was great news because myself and Lady Booda have been using this service for quite a while now. We love their fresh, locally sourced ingredients delivered right to our door with easy to follow instructions, so it was a no-brainer for me to take this opportunity to recommend it to anyone looking for a fast, affordable, and great solution to eating healthy and cooking at home. I just got done eating meatloaves with creamy mushroom sauce and tilapia with this scallion pesto that made your boy's mouth water. I've got a limited time offer for you guys. If you click the link in the description below or go to HelloFresh.com, you can get 16 free meals and 3 surprise gifts on your next boxes ordered. Make sure to check that out before it's too late. Thank you guys so much for listening. Let's get back to the program. To see how Tweaks has rated them, and it's made it a very easy process to then be able to explain to you why I think certain arts are your best choices, and I'll obviously go into depth on why and what situation will capitalize on that best. So to start off, I did sort them by the learnable skills because we're going to be looking at Sandworm sitting at the top. If you've done your due diligence and research before you started your account, you'll know that there are 2 arcs that are very highly recommended to get either one or potentially both on the infinite reroll when you start an account, that being Sandworm, and if I move over to AERs listed, the second one being Cloudia. That's because the Ark Ether reward, right? This is the piece of equipment you get after you max out an Ark Ether percentage for an Ark. Every Ark comes with a piece of gear you can acquire from it by running it in quests or using Ethereum to increase that percentage to 100. Cloudia the Great comes with Trishula, which again is one of the most incredible pieces of gear. It does have a bit of a botched description in the game, which they still haven't fixed to this day. But what Trishula does, and we can read on Lake's Goldmine, skills will ignore 100% of the enemy's attribute resistance. So this is hands down one of the best pieces of gear if you want to make your beginner life easy in Last Cloudia for elemental attackers. Because equipping this to a unit, if a dark unit like Loug Zeus is fighting an enemy with 100 dark resistance, you'll see a bunch of 1s and 2 damage numbers all over the screen. With Trishula, and I have a video going into depth why this is such an incredible piece of gear for any new account, with Trishula, you will ignore that 100 resistance completely, and Loug Zeus will deal damage as if that 100 resistance was never even there. So you can start brainstorming if you're new to Last Cloudia why Trishula is such a sought after weapon. What I will say, and something Tweaks and I talked about extensively, is that as you approach endgame, and with the continuation of things like Lagrange that just released that lowers resistance with his anima, other ways to stack resistance lowering, Trishula is not as prevalent or needed at all when you are in the current endgame of Last Cloudia. So its usefulness, I think, is lost for players that stick around for the long term of the game. But what I will say is that for the new player experience, and even for things like multiplayer, when you want to take advantage of a unit's DPS that might be fighting a heavily resistant boss to that specific element, Trishula still reigns supreme in ease of use, right? You don't have to cast 2 to 3 to 4 different elemental resistance lowering spells. You can just equip Trishula and get your DPS out, saving you time and effort. So, still, to this day, Sandworm being the only teachable dual wield, and Trishula being as effective as it is, I still will defend my stance and recommend that any account that's trying to play for the long term as a new account, you get these arcs on your account, right? Like for my free-to-play alt, I was able to get Sandworm on my infinite reroll, but not Trishula. I'm going to be picking up Caldina the Great with the Arc trade ticket on my free-to-play alt account. No question. Don't even second-guess myself once. Dual wield, oh my goodness, so many units come with dual wield nowadays. Listen, when they don't, and when you need to flesh out your roster endgame, and you have a bunch of units that would be literally doubly as effective if you could dual wield with them for things like Maze of Tartarus, and you don't have dual wield, it's gonna feel really bad, and it does not allow you to age your roster very well, right? You're gonna be very dependent on individual units and their kits if you don't pick up these tools in order to take full advantage of everything on your account. I think that's the point that a lot of us veterans try and emphasize when we recommend Sandworm and Caldina. While yes, a lot of units come with what they want and what they need innately in their kit, you don't want to be stuck playing with one unit in the game for the entirety of your last Cloud experience. It's not a good way to play. It's an easy way to get bored or just be stuck re-rolling every time you want something new, which if that's your thing, go for it. But for what I recommend, I like to have tools that age very, very well over time. And Caldina, Sandworm being as early as they were released in this game, still at the top of their current tiers in the game. It's like Spirit Maiden Tyria in my eyes. So if you don't have one of these two, it's just kind of like Tyria and Maja. It's a no-brainer. You get the one that you're missing. Now, let's move on to other arcs, right, after you get the 2 mandatory picks out of the way. We're actually going to move on to a sorted list of arena arcs because that's going to put Pirate Ship Legnus at the top. Well, not technically. Abandoned City of the Sea because it starts with an A. However, I want to direct your attention to Pirate Ship Legnus, right? You have Caldina, you have Sandworm. What am I looking at next? Number 3, I think it's pretty easy for me to recommend Pirate Ship Legnus. Now, you can see that it is rated a 10 in Arena, or the PvP rating, and that's because it allows for the entire team to not flinch for 10 seconds, and that 10-second window in the current Arena meta is priceless for you to get all of your damage out, not get flinched, and it basically becomes a damage burst war, right? That's what you're looking at in the top tiers of Arena, and not being able to flinch for those first 10 seconds can turn the tide of your entire Arena battle, no question. But what I will also point out is that look at the stats across the entire board. This arc is rated a 9, 9, 9, 10. Like, the reason we recommend freaking Sandworm for the learnable skills and then Trishula for the 10 is because you got to kind of think of it as their 10s in their respective categories are on a league of their own. However, Pirate Ship, the 10 in Arena is very impactful, but Arena's not the entirety of, or the majority of the game. So that 10 doesn't quite hold as much impact as the other two. But it's still a stupidly good arc to have for everywhere else in the game, right? The passive arc effect in PvE can still serve you very, very well for wave-by-wave content, giving like 15 seconds of SCT along with the no flinching for the entire party is very nice. The learnable skills, you get Pirate's Feast. If you guys have watched any of my previous content, you know I recommend Pirate's Feast, which has just become a goated skill. Pirate's Feast is also one of these skills that has aged incredibly well over time with the type of content Last Cloudia has released. So it's learnables, Pirate's Feast. I think you get Fish Slayer as well, so that covers one of the Slayers if you're missing that. And then looking at the Arc Ether reward sitting at a 9, Pirate's Bangle, I think it's called, or Pirate Thief's Bangle. This is what allows essentially any unit to become a pseudo thief, because on kill you have a 10% chance to steal an item from enemies that drop items. So it works extremely well for your auto farm, right? If you have an auto farm unit, you give them Pirate's Thief, and then you got 10% extra steal drops every time you clear a wave. So again, this Ark across the board is so freaking valuable, and it holds a 10 in one of the respective columns, that I think it's also an easy number 3, right? You have the first 2 covered. Pirate ship is number 3 that you pick up. And then for number 4, we're going to go back to learnables and scroll down to March of the Saints. You can see has a 9 in the learnable skills because of the skill Goddess Kiss, right? This skill has become very, very valuable and sought after because we now have these units that can regenerate a lot of MP on their normal attacks or their regular attacks due to the high amount of damage output, right? And the skill, Goddess Kiss, regenerates 2% of that damage as MP, right? It's a 10% chance. However, having this available for anyone that started their account with Bayland is going to be extremely useful, right? Bayland has that ability to charge up his SCT with Silent Contemplation, but then you're left with no more MP at a certain point. Well, with Goddess Kiss, you can literally just one-tap an enemy with your regular attack, and boom, he's got his entire MP amount stocked back up just about. And with MP being a very, very significant stat and metric that units can play off of, very, very important. Another one of these skills that's much better to have it when you need it rather than rely on units coming with it innately in their kit. So March of the Saints has extremely, extremely high value for that reason alone. But now getting into further situational picks, right? I'd say if you are missing one of those 4 arcs, pick those up, right? Get the one that you're missing in that particular order, I would recommend, right? You know, these are kind of interchangeable, Sandworm and Caldina, but if you followed any reroll guide that exists, you'll be picking one or the other since you started the infinite reroll with one of them. Pirate Ship is definitely number 3, and then I would say March of the Saints comes in at number 4 priority. After that, things get a little more gray because you probably have some certain team comps or situations that you're trying to work on. You may be missing specific skills to flesh out certain strategies. So an arc that I would highly, highly recommend is going back to Arena would be Abandoned City of the Sea for 2 reasons. One, because it's also a 10 in Arena, right? Giving your unit that you give this arc to basically, what, 30-something seconds of SCT at the start of battle is extremely viable, right? Is a 10 out of 10 for the current arena meta, with that being that first burst damage exchange that I talked about. However, this arc also unlocks the mother fight, right? There are certain subquests that are gated behind having certain arcs. Abandoned City is one of these, and without being able to fight Mother, you can't then fight Vaz, which gives you the free-to-grind UR with that incredible AER alongside it. So you'll definitely want to make sure to have this on your account sooner rather than later if you're approaching endgame. Some of you who maybe don't know why you can't fight the Mother system, it's because you don't have this arc. So not only is it going to be extremely useful in Arena when you want to focus on that game mode, but it can also serve a huge purpose in just clearing content altogether. So this is a great opportunity for you to pick that up, guarantee yourself from being not locked out of that content. And now we're just going to talk about kind of that gray area, honorable mentions, I guess you can call it. There are arcs that are useful for specific reasons if you're just missing those aspects. I'm looking at Skyship Lonvalion right now because, right, it's got learnable skills of 9 for a couple of different reasons. It comes with Magic Aura, which is the equivalent of Sharp Eyes, an extra 50% to magic damage for an extra amount of MP used. However, what Skyship also provides is Machine Equip, right? So talk to you about why Trishula Reigns Supreme is still one of the most desirable arcs for acquiring Trishula. Well, Trishula is a machine type equipment, and certain units can't wield machines innately, so they need a skilled machine equip in order to use Trishula in the first place. So Skyship Lonvalion provides that enabling. I talked about how Magic Aura is the Sharp Eyes for Magic. Well, Foreign Land Magrona is currently the only place to acquire one of the best skill damage boosting teachables out there, that being a 50% increase of skill damage for 3% of MP. This is one of those MP strategies that couples really nice with having Goddess Kiss, as I mentioned. So this will be a very nice pick for those just looking for that extra boost to finally hit those damage caps on many of their physical DPS. If you're missing Sharp Eyes, here's a beautiful opportunity to pick it. Sword of Corpses, right? Tweaks likes to make the joke that we play Sword Cloudia because the most common weapon type used are swords. Some of the best traits that we see on pieces of gear are on swords, so this enables you to use the skill Sword High Boost, giving you a great physical damage mod in that case. Moving over to AERs ranked highly, right? Silver Gray Swordsman, another one of these just highly rated in very common places of the game, right? It's very useful for its passive effect. Not quite a 9 in this case, but definitely an 8 for the learnables as well. I know it has Sorcerer Slayer, it has Sword Boost, so the lower tier version that does stack with Sword High Boost, and then an incredible AER. I think it's called Swordsman Mindset. So this is just really nice to pick up if your account is still lacking it over time. Gotta give a shout out to the passives, right? I didn't even get into the highly ranked passive traits. I think learnable skills, AERs, are just, they hold a bit more weight because those are where like the true use of arcs come into play. Over time, the skills that you can teach your units and the pieces of gear that you can pass along every unit, that's just going to age better than an actual arc's passive, right? The arc passive is usually very niche. It's very specific for certain scenarios. That's another reason I mentioned not to worry about running arcs on your units early, not only to save resources, but also just because it's usually not super necessary in those early stages of the game. However, when you want to take advantage of useful arc passives, you gotta start thinking about Icy Guardian, which of course is one of the highest DPS enabling arcs in the entire game. Gives that 48 to 50% extra damage on every crit that you perform, and that doesn't mean that it boosts your critical damage. It means that when you crit for 50,000, you also get a separate damage ticker of 25,000, barring the ice resistances, right? Icy Guardian provides ice extra damage, so you gotta keep that in mind. However, for most situations, Icy Guardian being one of the best damage enabling arcs ever. Elemental Arc is also highly rated at a 9. This is one of those that cuts elemental resistance when you're using either fire, ice, thunder, or earth magic. So elemental resistance cutting obviously is weighed very heavily. It's the reason that Trishula is so highly ranked. So anything that mimics something like that is going to have very high value. Ancient Weapon Lugan, very nice arc to pick up. One of the top tier arcs to run for any of your defensive units. Can work on your support healers, can work on your support tanks. So very easy slot in, and has a nice skill Celestial Mass, using some extra MP in order to have physical damage taken. So very nice there. Terror of the Granzelia and Phoenix Blow are basically your two top tier breaker arcs, right? Psycha Guild is also a very good one, but I know Tweaks rates it a little lower just because it's very conditional, right? If you don't meet all the conditions to get the 150% break, it's then less effective than Phoenix Blow and Terror of the Granzelia. So if you are missing one of these arcs and you want to flesh out a breaking strategy, these are not bad pickups at all. They also have great learnables, right? Anything 8 and above, you're looking at some very useful things to obtain from those arcs. Heaven's Bow Starlord, also a 9 in the passive effect, because it's basically, I see it as the pseudo Icy Guardian, where it can be more useful because it's a neutral extra damage or pursuit hit. It's just like a 25 to 28% amount of damage. So now if you're dealing 50k on your crit, you're only getting about 10k on your extra damage, rather than if the enemy is neutral to ice, you're getting that full 25. So not quite as much damage to be realized from Heaven's Bow Starlord, but still extremely useful for when it is gonna work a little better. Another honorable mention I want to give a shout out to Stardust Live. Now, the only reason to get this is if you are a skill stock abuser, which is much more prevalent at endgame. However, what Stardust Live allows is +1 to all of your skill stocks, and that, coupled with Pirate's Feast, is just more damage that you have access to more quickly, rather than needing to spend time recharging skill stocks in other different ways. If a unit has Stardust Live and Pirate's Feast, they load into the wave 2 and onward with all of their skill stocks, and you can just dump all of it right there and gain access to that damage output more quickly, which again saves you time. Anything that saves you time is going to hold that amount of value. So Stardust Live, when you're looking to just be that DPS carry in multiplayer stages, can help you have that last stock you need to kill the boss before you got to go into regen strategies and stuff like that. So wanted to give it a shout for that reason. I think there are some other arcs I can talk about that do lock content behind them. Divine Beast Loug Mechia, you can't take on that Lugan Tower, which then gives you the Summoning Stone for Loug Mechia. You guys have probably seen in a lot of my showcases, I'm recently running the Machine Floors 97 through 99. That is in the Lugan Tower, which I believe you do need Loug Mechia for. Funny enough, I don't think you need the Lugan Ark that I mentioned earlier. You actually need the Loug Mechia Ark in order to access that subquest. The other one is a Babalad, right? In order to get this Summoning Stone and access the Venom Swamp subquests, you do have to have Babalad in order to do that. Both of these I wouldn't say are necessary things to do at all, right? The Summoning Stones are a bit taboo in today's game, and they're not used for anything super meta. But in case you have just always wanted to do those quests and get those Summoning Stones and haven't been able to, don't know why, it's because you don't have the arcs. So here's your opportunity to just guarantee yourself some extra subquest content. And finally, I guess I'll mention Blaze Garden, because you can see it's an 8 in the learnable skills. That is because this is also a place where you have access to Machine Equip. There's Machine Slayer. And I think that's where I will close out my final thoughts on the Arc Selector ticket. If you have listened to this whole video and you say, none of this stuff is relevant to me, I have all of the arcs you mentioned, I'm covered, or I just really don't care, some final piece of advice I can give is just looking for arcs that come with a specific anti-damage boost that your account does not have. So, of course, as always, use Lake's Gold Mine, go to the Skills tab, and literally just type in Slayer, giving you access to all of these different Slayer skills. I guess it's not as easy as I thought it would be, but like Bird Slayer here tells you that you get it from Heaven's Bow Star-Lord. Keep scrolling down. Creature Slayer comes from Terror of the Grana Seas. So Dragon Slayer comes from both the Rainicle and Boltbearer's Ascent. So use this opportunity to flesh out your anti-damage that your account is missing. I'd say last case scenario. That's going to be your most useful way to take advantage of this Arc Selector ticket. Any geysers we currently have, right? That's becoming a teachable thing on certain arcs. Machine Geyser available on Durandal Reborn, although I think that came after. Look, Stone Geysers available on Harmatan Craft. So any ways that you can flesh out your anti-damage accessible to you will help you deal the most amount of damage, hit those consistent caps for more end game challenges that you're facing. And I think that's a good place to end the video, guys. This one was a little more detailed in explanation than the unit selector, but that's just because arcs add a bit more complex layer, I'd say, than trying to figure out which unit's going to fit your account best, right? There's so much more to it with those different categories, the arc passive, the teachables, the AER, so much to consider, but hopefully this video helped you out. Hopefully I didn't confuse many of you too much, and hope it made you make this decision a bit easier. If it did, guys, like the video, hit subscribe if you're new, and turn on all those bell notifications so you don't miss a video when I post. Don't let the algorithm tell you when to watch my video, because you might make bad decisions before it's too late. Head over to my Twitch to watch me play some Monster Hunter Rise. It'd be great to experience this new game, at least for me, with y'all and any Monster Hunter experts. I would love any pro tips to help me get to the end game, start making my guy look better than ever. And with all that being said, y'all know what we say: work hard, play harder. See you in the next video.